Hi, my name is Larissa and I'm a therapist here at Bay Area Mental Health. And I wanted to talk to you today about how to manage the stress and anxiety that I think we're all feeling as we go through this coronavirus pandemic. The first thing that I'm going to tell you to do might sound counterintuitive, and that is to actually notice all of your fears, to acknowledge all of the concerns that you're having. Actually sit down and maybe write them all down on a piece of paper. No matter how far-fetched they are, no matter how, um, you know, worst case scenario they might seem, just get them all down. Fully acknowledge them to yourself. Part of what happens is that we think that worrying is it's a way of controlling things that we don't have any control over. So when we worry, it actually feels like we're doing something about it. The problem is that we're actually not doing anything about it, and we're feeling very much out of control. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to absolutely sit down, write down all of your concerns, really acknowledge them, really express them, and then start thinking about how, what am I afraid of, and what are the chances that my concern or my fear will actually come true. So literally, what is the percentage chance that my fear is going to come true? And it might not be zero. There might be maybe a 50% chance or a 40% chance that something that you're afraid of is going to happen, right? So you write down everything that you're afraid is going to happen. You write down how realistic, what percentage chance is there that this is going to happen. And then for those things that you can control, what can I do to mitigate that concern? Let's say I'm afraid of running out of food. I'm afraid of running out of medicine. I'm afraid of contracting the virus. Some of those things you can control. So maybe sit down and think about, okay, how much food do I need and for how long? And go out and make sure you have that food. For the things that you can't control or that there isn't anything that you can do right now to mitigate, then that's where I'm going to ask you to do some radical acceptance. Accepting that you are concerned about it, accepting that it is a very real fear, and accepting that if it does happen, if you get to that step, that you will be able to handle it. And that at that point, you're going to go through an exercise like this where you'll figure out what are the things that I can control, how do I manage those, and then how do I accept the things that I can't control. The other, and as you're doing this, some of the things some practical tips that you can take into account are maybe to read the news once a day instead of all day long. As I'm watching the news headlines come in, I'm realizing that a lot of them are rehashing the same stories over and over, maybe using different words. They're not really offering a lot of new information. There's a lot of what ifs. And so those things can heighten our anxiety and really contribute to this unnamed sense of fear that we have. So maybe read news once a day, find some credible news sources, and then pay attention for anything that's new and concrete. So not a what if, not a worst case scenario, not a maybe this might happen, but what is new, what's new information, and what is concrete information. Another thing to do, and this is always, is to eat well, exercise, try to sleep well, talk to your friends and family on the phone or video conference, distract yourself in productive ways. Movies, books, arts and crafts, get to all those projects that you hadn't been able to get to until now. And if you catch yourself spinning out, which it's easy to do, I think the biggest thing you can do is breathe. Take some big breaths. Maybe do that 5 times. And then go back to the first step that I talked about, which is really listing out your fears and figuring out which ones of those, what the likelihood is that those are going to happen, and then which ones of those you can actually do something about. There might be things that you actually can do that are going to make you feel a little bit better. So not only will you feel a little bit better prepared, but you'll also have a sense of control, which is so important when we're feeling anxious. And then, try to refrain from destructive patterns. When all of us, when we become stressed, we really fall back to sort of those destructive short-term patterns or destructive patterns that make us feel better in the short term. So as much as you can, try to refrain from those and really double down on the things that do work for you, right? So even if you're not feeling like you need it, maybe, double down on the support group that you are part of, or online religious services or additional meditation. Really double down on those things now when you don't need them, so that they'll be there when you do. And the other thing I think that's important to recognize is that we're all going to deal with this in our own way. You don't need to defend, how your actions or your fears or your thoughts, or try to convince others to do things the way that you're doing them. You can let people know what you're doing and why, and you can certainly set boundaries for yourself. If people aren't practicing, let's say, the social distancing that you are, you can limit your contact with them, and that's perfectly okay. I think we sometimes can get caught up in trying to convince others to do the things that we're doing, or trying to defend what we're doing. You do what's right for you and for your family. And most importantly, I think, in all of this is these are anxious times. It's normal to be stressed. It's okay. And these are some of the things that you can do to help that. So be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. Yeah, and just know that this is normal, and whatever you're going through is normal. All right, thanks, and take care.